The following podcast is an exclusive presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Thank you for coming to the Project Entertainment Network store. Please place your order. A good choice. A t-shirt for the horror show with Brian Keene. A Manta Method coffee mug. There's more. A Necrocast Icon hoodie. That's sharp. But why on earth would you want Bizong leggings? Wait, are you Mr. Frank? The Project Entertainment Network store, stacked with goodies from all your favorite podcasts. T-shirts, hoodies, mugs and more. www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
There shall come a podcast like no other. Defenders Dialogue with Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Marvel Comics' original superhero non-team convenes once again. The Incredible Hulk, the Savage Submariner, the Master of the Mystic Arts, Doctor Strange, and a dynamic supporting cast of Marvel superheroes battle against evil as the Defenders. Without further ado, true believers, here's your hosts, Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Excelsior!
And welcome back once again, true believers, to Defenders Dialogue. I'm Brian Keene.
And I am Christopher Golden. And Brian, I say Excelsior to you, but I also say Excelsior to the Invisible Mary Sangiovanni, who we just spent time chatting with prior to this recording.
We did. It's a shame that was not also recorded for posterity. We learned about her mutant power and your mutant power, and
and we'll leave that right where it is at the moment.
We will. Folks, we come to the end of an era on this week's episode. J.M. DeMatteis' legendary run on the Defenders started back in the 90s. Not the 1990s, but issue number 90s.
Yep.
With him, we've seen one of the best Nebulon stories ever. We've seen a new Avengers Defenders War. Of course, the epic Six-Fingered Hand saga, the wedding of the son of Satan and Hellcat, the alternate Earth, the introduction of the Overmind and Gargoyle, the death of Nighthawk, the death and rebirth of Valkyrie, even that weird little Dr. Seuss side.
I blocked that out, Brian. Thanks for refreshing my memory.
You're welcome. But now we come to the end. Yes, it is the new Defenders, but the new team is about to get a new writer after this episode. So, Chris, where do we start? We start with
we start with the New Defenders 128, Brian, which I have to say, let's begin by just mentioning this fantastic cover by Kevin Nolan.
Yes.
It's Valkyrie, Angel, Beast, and Gargoyle on the cover. And you know what's interesting? And I think that this cover is an interesting segue into the conversation I know we're going to have today, which is about, and I'm curious to see what J.M. DeMatteis says when we talk to him on this show, but I'm also curious to see what Peter Gillis's run feels like when we get to it, because I feel like this cover shows me these characters together in a way that makes me go, wow, these characters are great together.
Right.
But then when you read the issues, it often feels like J.M. DeMatteis thought these characters will be great together. And then maybe later, I really want to ask him, did he later think perhaps they weren't so great together after all?
I have similar thoughts. The cover, I mean, you look at the expressions, particularly on Valkyrie and Gargoyle and Beast. I mean, it's like a legion of Joe Lansdales on that cover. They're ready to rumble.
Yeah.
They're ready to fuck you up.
Yeah.
These are seasoned superheroes. And then within the storyline itself,
sorry, go ahead.
There are times where they're written as like these bumbling amateurs just starting out. And I don't know that jives with their history. I mean, yes, this is their first time operating as a team together, but more than half the team operated as X-Men. Valkyrie has been in this book damn near since the beginning, and Gargoyle has had some experience by now as well. as I said in the last episode, it's jarring from the 120 some issues that came before this. But I agree, we should ask him. I wondered in rereading this how much of that was written for people who had never read the X-Men, or who had never read the Defenders and were picking up this book because it was the X-Men.
Right.
And how much of it was, as you said, that DeMatteis thought, hey, these characters would go great together. And then once he got them together on the page, he said, you know what? This isn't working like I thought it would.
Yeah, and you have to wonder as we go forward, pardon me, I swallowed wrong while drinking my iced tea. But anyway.
That's what he said.
Yeah. So the other thing you sort of have to wonder is, and again, the question I really want to ask is, I understand the selection of the 3 former X-Men because they were sort of sitting around and not being used. Maybe we needed to pump up the circulation of this book. And I'm interested in the selection of Moondragon, and I want to talk to you about the role I think she plays. But also, the sort of Gargoyle sticking around, pardon me, I love, but it's just, I don't know, it just all feels really weird.
And Gargoyle, personality-wise, I believe I don't know if DeMatteis is aware of it, and I don't mean this as a criticism, but he's written differently with these characters than he was with the other Defenders.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I agree with that. He's written very differently, though by the same writer.
Yeah.
I still love him, but he's very different. So, all right, let's jump into it.
Let's do it.
We begin at the Eyrie, which is a mountainside Colorado Rockies rich man's dream of a home owned by Warren Worthington III, a.k.a. the Angel. Prior to this, Brian, it's been the sort of love nest for Warren and Candy Southern, his on-again, off-again girlfriend. We find the new Defenders all moving in. Dolly is there bringing them coffee or tea or whatever as they unpack. Moondragon's meditating. The Angel's brooding. And Hank McCoy is upset because his VHS tape collection of the Star Trek original series is wrecked. And then they're just sort of, discussing. There's some chaos as they move in. I don't think we need to, to go through that.
No.
Beat by beat. But I also want to just talk about. So first of all, by the way, I want to point out here that the issue is written by Mark DeMatteis. It's penciled by Alan Kupperberg, but it's inked by Mike Mignola.
Right. Yeah, your friend Mike Mignola.
Yeah, my longtime friend and collaborator and the creator of Hellboy, Mike Mignola, is the inker on this. And I've heard Mike talk many times about the days when he would be sort of hanging around the Marvel bullpen looking for inking work early in his career. So there are some artistic things in this issue that I really loved, although the worst artistic thing in the issue is the way Kupperberg draws Hank McCoy.
I agreed. Like I said on last week's episode, no offense to Kupperberg. I liked his work on Doom Patrol and things that came later. Right. But it's so jarring after, Sal Buscema and Keith Giffen and Don Perlin and, all these other artists. I guess it's because I grew up with a certain Marvel house style.
Right.
There was the way I expected the characters to look. His drawing of Hank McCoy here, it's a completely different character.
Yeah, I agree. But the one thing I will say, though, is at the place where we can see Mignola as inker really enjoying this book is every panel that has Gargoyle in it, particularly in a close-up. There are several Gargoyle drawings by Kupperberg that Mignola inked that I'm just like, that's like, that I think look fantastic. So it was really fun to see this combo here.
Absolutely.
Despite the fact that I hate the way Kupperberg draws the Beast,
No, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, you mentioned that some chaos and hijinks ensue while they're moving. This leads to Beast and Moondragon antagonizing each other, and Moondragon, uh, blasts the Beast with her mental beam thingy, her telepathy, and Gargoyle sort of confronts her. And yeah, there's a close up there on the bottom of the page of Gargoyle, sort of, as I said, Isaac is written very differently here. He's sort of breaking bad on Moondragon, calling her girly and
and
tough guy. But Manola's ink really pops in that panel.
Yeah, agreed. Because it's clearly that's what he wanted to ink, I think. So let me point out, because there's a lot of plot elements we're going to sort of skim through here, I think. But let's just say at the outset, because we're going to touch base on this as we talk in this episode. We've discussed in the past about the fact that Angel and Iceman both seem to be, almost stalkerish in their level of obsession with Moondragon here.
Right.
It seems to me, Brian, that, and again, like I don't remember if we're going there, but it certainly seems like we're going to get to a point where we find out that Moondragon has been influencing them to have that reaction to her. That may not be the case, but it certainly seems that way.
I agree. I don't remember. Unlike our previous 128 issues, I only read the Peter Gillis stuff once when it was originally published. I've never gone back and reread them.
Right.
So I don't remember what happens.
Right. Well, we'll see. All right. Yeah. So as we skip ahead, we go to Cloud, and we're just going to sort of talk about this stuff in a very general way. Number one, I will say that Cloud is a character we're going to talk about a lot going forward, particularly when we talk to Peter Gillis.
Absolutely.
And also, Cloud is a character. Cloud and Seraph, I want to ask J.M. DeMatteis if he just was sort of, and I hate to put it this way because I have such, we do it as writers all the time, and in comics you can't go back. Once the comic book is out, you can't go back. So I wonder, reading these issues, if DeMatteis thought of other things he wanted to do with these characters that he hadn't thought of before, and so he's just making this shit up as he goes. So basically, we see Cloud in the grip of the Secret Empire, face to face with Professor Power. Go ahead.
Right. Basically, what's happening here is Moondragon, who was, remember last issue, Cloud came to the Defenders looking for help, and Moondragon was able to read her mind. So Moondragon is recounting everything she learned. And it's Cloud with Professor Power, the new leader of the Secret Empire. And, we learned through a backstory that Cloud was a mutant, and her parents lived way out in the country, probably somewhere here in rural Pennsylvania where I am, where there was never, there were nobody else around them. And they were happy. And her father told her that, he would explain why she was different than the other children when she got older. But he never got that chance, because one day Mad Dog and the Mutant Force show up. And, Dad goes outside with his deer rifle to defend the house, and he's killed by Mad Dog and the Mutant Force. They then set the house on fire with Cloud's mother inside. And we see Mad Dog and the Mutant Force flying away, Cloud in the clutches of Seraph. Right. Now, Professor Power, he seems genuine here. He's like, I'm truly sorry, child. I did not desire the death of your parents. He tells her about his son, who we talked about last issue, whose mind was destroyed by Professor Charles Xavier in the pages of Marvel Team Up. And, he asks Cloud to forgive him, and she's having none of this. He murdered her parents, brainwashed him, or brainwashed her, made her think that Seraph was her sister, the Empire was where she belonged. She then attacks Professor Power, who knocks her out. And then we come back to the Defenders and Moondragon, and she says, that's when Cloud finally escaped the Empire, came to us for help. And of course, we all know from last episode how that worked out for them.
Not well.
Yeah.
Now this is the perfect place for me to mention the thing I wanted to mention about Moondragon's place on this team. Moondragon is a character of massive potential as far as her powers are concerned. That's one of the reasons why DeMatteis has given her this headband from Odin that tries to keep her, gives her intense pain if she, uses her powers for bad or whatever. Moondragon, I think, is weirdly now the Namor or Doctor Strange of this team.
Absolutely.
In the early days. Because she's constantly shitting on everybody. She's like just nasty and mean to everybody. And the thing is, you look at it and you think, well, why are Angel and Iceman so obsessed with her again? But anyway, and the other thing I wanted to mention about the Iceman of this era is it constantly disturbs me every time we see Bobby Drake not iced up that it's just him in panties and gloves and boots.
Yeah.
Like, why does he not have a costume?
Yeah.
I'm just like...
Yeah, that is a little weird. He's wearing his Fruit of the Looms and a pair of boots. And I guess he can't ice up if he's wearing clothes. But then how do you explain the underwear? Does he take the underwear off before he ices up?
And the boots and the gloves.
Yeah.
Anyway, I should be making a list of these questions. That's the primary question, Mr. DeMatteis, when you come on the show. Why is Bobby Drake always almost naked? Anyway, they look out the window. Valkyrie is returning. I will say that I love Gargoyle in this issue, but I hate the Valkyrie, the way Kupperberg draws Valkyrie in this issue.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So I think we cut to the chase, Brian, and say that basically what we find, Valkyrie returns, everybody's glad to see her, and what we find out is that Moondragon actually knows exactly where the Secret Empire's headquarters is because she saw it in Cloud's mind, and she didn't bother to bring it up until now.
That's right. The Beast, he takes issue with this, and the two start to antagonize each other again, and Moondragon tells him he is a tiresome little ape. And then, to the appearance of the rest of the Defenders, the Beast begins acting like a monkey, a caricature of a monkey, scratching his armpits, jumping around, going, ooh, 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 asking for bananas. In reality, it's Moondragon playing with his mind, making him do this. And of course, the psychic backlash from that headband is too much. She collapses. And
while Valkyrie's upset with Moondragon for the way she treated Beast, Angel and Iceman are upset with Odin about the fact that Moondragon has to suffer this, even though she just attacked their best friend.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we go to. I want to know also in this era how many Avengers Quinjets there were, because it seemed to me like everyone would borrow an Avengers Quinjet every issue of every Marvel comic in this era, and then it would be destroyed.
We've crashed 2 of them so far in the Defenders.
Only 2?
During DeMatteis's run.
Okay.
And
Does that include this one?
No, this will be the 3rd.
Okay.
And then, of course, there was one that crashed during Steve Gerber's run. No, it wasn't Gerber. It was Roy Thomas who did the Avengers Defenders War. And I think one that crashed during David Anthony Kraft's run. So the Defenders do not have a good track record with Avengers.
With borrowed Quinjets.
Yeah, we see the team in another borrowed Avengers Quinjet. They're talking with Nick Fury. They're letting him know where the Secret Empire's headquarters are. But before they can formulate a plan, something messes with the communications, and Fury loses contact with them. They find out that it's some kind of force field, and they find that out by crashing the Quinjet into it.
Yeah, they crash the Quinjet, which is destroyed. Of course, they make it safely to the ground. They they smash their way through the force field. I'm just hurrying through this stuff. They smash their way through the force field, and then they're set upon by a legion of Secret Empire soldiers who happen to be dressed like ancient Spartans.
Right.
And then there's a pretty cool, battle scene, including a splash page with a big fight going on. But during that fight, both Angel and Iceman have thought balloons that say, "Will you look at that moon dragon go?" But that's not the only time we see that. As we go forward, we see that Angel and Iceman are often thinking exactly the same thing about Moondragon, which enhances this idea that Moondragon is perhaps influencing their thoughts here.
Exactly.
So basically, they get in, and Brian, they get through, but who are they attacked by?
Harridan, Seraph, Mad Dog, and the Mutant Force. It's just like old home week, Chris.
There's nothing I like better in the page of the New Defenders than seeing Mad Dog and the Mutant Force.
But they're not the only ones to show up. Our new friend Leviathan, who we talked about last episode.
Yum, eat him up.
Yep, he's back. But apparently his powers are growing because on the very next panel he says, "Super people hurt me bad. Now I make you very dead." And Beast says, "Should I bother to tell him that doesn't rhyme?" So basically these 2-bit villains make quick work of the New Defenders. And when our team wakes up, they find Professor Power standing over them, explaining that all of this whole thing has been part of his plot to totally destroy Professor Charles Xavier, who's not even connected to the defense.
Right, and how does he want to destroy Professor X? He wants to break his heart, Brian. That's his plan. He wants to break Professor X's heart by destroying his children the way Professor Power's own son was destroyed by Charles Xavier. And the way he wants to do that is to control the New Defenders, including and specifically the 3 former X-Men, and have them kill the New Mutants.
That's right. Now, for our listeners, and I know there are many who either did not read Bronze Age comic books or are not, or who read comics now and just aren't up on that era. The New Mutants were a really big deal at the end of the Bronze Age. It was one of Marvel's best books.
It was great. It was also written. It was Claremont, and was it Louise Simonson?
Yes.
Yeah.
The two of them. And basically the X-Men had all grown up and become adults, and Logan was getting married, and Cyclops and Jean were getting married, and all these things were going on. So they created a whole new generation of mutant children for Professor X to train.
Yeah.
My favorite of which was a country boy from Appalachia.
Of course
Cannonball.
It was.
I love Cannonball. Fine, you want to talk? And I say it in jest, but it's true. Some people struggle with the concept of representation in comics because they grew up, seeing, Bruce Banner, Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, Peter Parker, and I'm not making light of that, but for me to see a hillbilly in a comic back then, it's a big fucking deal.
Listen, I loved Cannonball. I always loved that character. Sam Guthrie. We have Sunspot, Roberto DaCosta, Mirage, Danny Moonstar, Cannonball, Sam Guthrie, Wolfsbane, who is my favorite member of the New Mutants. She's a Scottish werewolf named Rain Sinclair. And then Karma, and I hate to say it, but Karma is the one whose name I can never remember. And I think because she was the least interesting to me of those characters.
Right. Yeah, Karma was, hell, I can't remember her name either.
There you go. So we get into 129 of the New Defenders. Another great cover, this one featuring New Mutants versus the New Defenders on the cover. Pretty damn cool, actually.
Right.
this issue, you'll be happy to know, Brian, is written by DeMatteis, but drawn by Don Perlin and Kim DeMulder.
Yes.
Perlin has made a return.
Yes, and we open with a splash page, the new Defenders attacking the New Mutants at Professor X's School for Gifted Youngsters.
Now, as interesting as this is, I'm not that interested in going through the big fight between the Defenders and New Mutants.
I agree.
I think, the important thing here is that there's a fight that opens up, and then Moondragon reveals that, guess what? The fight is all in their heads. It isn't real.
None of this is real. Professor X, the New Mutants, the school, they're not real.
Because the Defenders are in captivity. Now, the Defenders, to remind you, folks, at this point, are made up of 6 characters: Valkyrie, Iceman, Beast, Gargoyle, Angel, and Moondragon. They're all in captivity, and what's happening is essentially Professor Power is trying to brainwash them into being willing to kill the New Mutants.
That's right.
The other thing I want to point out, by the way, Brian, is the members of the Secret Empire. The one thing I will say about Professor Power is he's an excellent manager. Because there are at least, they're all known by their numbers, there are at least 101 members of the Secret Empire in his circle there. And he knows them all by face. He recognizes them all and their number.
Yeah, that's impressive. But August Masters is the far better leader of the Secret Empire. I like his version of the Secret Empire far more than.
No, I do too. I'm just saying that, as a people person.
I mean, August Masters had real goals. They were monstrous goals, but they were goals that stood for something. Professor Power is just out for revenge at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know, man. So basically, we're just in this place where Professor Power, tends to beat up and potentially kill his other members of the Secret Empire, and I wonder at that point when he replaces them, do they all move up a number and somebody starts at the bottom, or does somebody come in and like if you kill Agent 16, does somebody come in as the new Agent 16, or everybody has to remember their new number? I don't know. Anyway.
So, Professor Power, we get a couple pages of him basically recapping previous issues of the Defenders. He's considering maybe going back to his original plan of delivering the corpses of Iceman, Angel, and Beast to Professor X's doorstep. We then find out that this revenge against Professor X is not, in fact, his only plan. Maybe there's a little bit of August Masters in him after all. The Secret Empire has also infiltrated Roxxon Oil, which, if you're a longtime listener to the show, you'll remember they were Marvel's basically version of the giant evil corporation. They've taken over specifically Roxxon's Oomph Command, which was seen in Marvel Team Up and Captain America. Basically, Roxxon had developed this technology to go to different dimensions and different times and mine them of the resources. So, like, they'd go back to the prehistoric era and, mine all the oil.
There's also this really interesting thing that I feel like these issues continue to tap into various other things that DeMatteis had written in the Marvel Universe around the same period. So it's all sort of one big story, which is great, except that now reading them not in context gives you, dialogue talking about somebody named Gentry in prison. I don't know who that is. I don't remember who that is.
Gentry was the Porcupine.
Okay, it is the Porcupine. Okay,
a member of the Defenders Rogues Gallery.
Okay, I didn't realize that was his name, or I didn't remember that was his name. But I love the fact that their battle suits are based on the Porcupine's design.
Oh.
Anyway, Professor Power has this thing called Project Sublimate, and then he contacts my best friend, Buzz Baxter, Mad Dog,
Right.
And they're waiting to launch their attack.
Right. Now, I'm going to blow through this, folks, but basically we're going to give you the secret of Professor Power and tell you what Project Sublimate is. Professor Power, after talking to Mad Dog, he stands in front of a mirror, he takes off his helmet, and we learn that, yes, Xavier destroyed his son's mind. So what Professor Power did was put his own mind inside his son's body.
Which is inside some kind of power suit.
Yeah, basically it's just like the saga of Nighthawk's brain from the Headman Nebula. And Project Sublimate, they're going to send this satellite into orbit around Earth. It's going to be untrackable, and it's basically going to act like the Mad Bomb from the pages of Captain America. It's going to drive the Russian and American leaders insane and force them to launch World War III. The Secret Empire will hide in their bunker until it's all over, and will then rise to rule the Earth.
To rule what remains.
Yeah. So, obviously, if you're going to do something like that, Mad Dog is who you want put in charge of that project.
Yeah. Well, of course. Why not? All right. So then we get back to the Smoky Mountains of Virginia. Nick Fury and members of S.H.I.E.L.D. are up there trying to find Professor Power's castle, which seems to move around. They are there's the arrival of a helicopter, upon which is the Soviet, because it was the Soviet Union in those days, the Soviet counterpart to Nick Fury. He's arrived with some of his men, and they know where that castle is now. We cut back to the Eyrie. I'm sorry, I said Colorado, but apparently it's in the Rocky Mountains of New Mexico.
Right.
And Candy Southern is arriving with Sassafras, the beast dog. And she scares the daylights out of Dolly.
She does.
Then they have a chat, just us girls, Dolly, Candy, and Sassafras. Candy's a little sad because this used to be the place that she and Warren would go, and now they have to share it with the Defenders. I can't help, again, feeling this whole Moondragon thing is an issue, but anyway. Then we get to, and Brian, you can take it, but we get to this moment that's the other moment that makes me think that DeMatteis was making this up as he went along.
That's right. We transition to Northern California, where Professor Power's Gothic castle has now appeared. Because remember, he can teleport the castle. And we find Seraph freeing Cloud from captivity. And,
And the major reveal that I'm talking about is just a caption.
Yeah, her nationality here. Seraph reveals that she wants to stop this madness before it engulfs both your nation and mine. So it turns out she's from Russia.
Yeah, but even before that, on the previous page, her name is Seraph, and she is one of the Secret Empire's most valuable operatives. But unbeknownst to everyone, she is also a Soviet double agent, DeMatteis tells us in the caption. And I can't help thinking that I hope we talk about this, because maybe I'm completely wrong and this was his plan from the beginning, and maybe he doesn't remember, but I can't help thinking that he just went, hey, you know what? I mean, I never said she wasn't a Soviet double agent. Anyway, which I love because it actually makes her more interesting. It actually is the thing that triggers the rest of the story.
It does. Seraph and Cloud free the Defenders, the new Defenders, and Cloud wants revenge on Professor Power. But before they can do any of that, the robots show back up, and another fight ensues.
Yeah, exactly. Another fight ensues. Professor Power gets angry because one of his minions, calls him on the carpet, and he murders number 4 because number 4 bores him. And then Professor Power does what every leader does. He takes off. While the place is under attack and he knows that his forces are going to lose. Even if the Secret Empire falls, Power shall survive.
That's right. We then get a countdown in the control room. You know, each panel has a numerical 10, 9, 8, 7. The new defenders bust in, make quick work of Mad Dog and the Mutant Force. Why they couldn't have done this 50 issues ago, I don't know.
Well, they do it again and again in these 3 issues, though.
It's true. And Valkyrie and Moondragon try to stop the nuke before it launches. And they grab onto it right as the countdown reaches 1, and the nuclear missile takes off into the sky.
No, this is a satellite.
Yeah, or the satellite, excuse me. The satellite. Up into the sky with Moondragon and Valkyrie clinging to its side.
Yeah. Issue 130, once again, I love the cover. The covers of these issues are just fantastic, and it's just Valkyrie, and it's a beautiful cover.
Now, I'm reading these in the Marvel Essential Collection, and the cover credit is not reproduced there. Who did that? Do you know?
No, it's not. There's no reference to who does the cover. There is a signature, but not a name. It's just initials, apparently.
Yeah, it's beautifully painted.
Yeah, it's gorgeous painted cover, yeah. This issue, 130, written by DeMatteis, guest penciled by Mike Zeck, and inked by Kim DeMulder.
Love Mike Zeck.
Yeah, I certainly prefer Zeck to Kupperberg on these characters.
Yeah, Zeck's rendition of Deathlock remains one of my favorite things ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's some of the artwork in here is gorgeous. I mean, if you look a couple pages in, there's a panel. That whole page design is great, but there's a panel where the satellite is, headed down and potentially going to crash the rocket, and the artwork on Moondragon and Valkyrie in that panel is amazing. It just looks,
it is.
It's gorgeous. Anyway, so basically, it's a little crazy. So Valkyrie and Moondragon are riding this satellite rocket. Valkyrie manages to redirect it. Then somehow Mad Dog, standing on top of the equipment, manages to take it over remotely and head it back towards space until Cloud transforms. Let's just remind people, by the way, that Cloud transmutes from a flesh and blood character who is naked except for being wreathed in clouds to an actual storm cloud, and she hits Mad Dog with some lightning, shorts out the whole system, and then Moondragon and Valkyrie are plummeting to their death. And again, great art. But any observations about this Moondragon situation, Brian?
Well, yeah, the satellite explodes and they're falling to the earth, and Angel goes flying into the sky screaming Moondragon. And Gargoyle says, "Don't forget Valkyrie's up there too, Angel. Angel." And Isaac thinks to himself, I kind of thought Warren had taken a shine to Moondragon, but I didn't think it was this bad.
Now remember, Candy Southern is waiting for Warren back at the Eyrie.
That's right.
In any case, I also love this panel. So Angel and Gargoyle catch Valkyrie and Moondragon, and this panel of Angel and Gargoyle flapping their wings really hard to slow down the descent is just beautiful. It just cracked me up to see. Anyway, they get to the ground with the help of Iceman and the Beast, and then. And Brian, this is my favorite part of these 3 issues. My absolute favorite part. They've saved the day. They've saved Valkyrie and Moondragon. And then they're set upon by none other than Mad Dog and the Mutant Force. Again. And then there's a big splash page of a fight between the New Defenders and Mad Dog and the Mutant Force. And you turn the page, and S.H.I.E.L.D. and Nick Fury come running to discover the New Defenders having kicked the shit out of Mad Dog and the Mutant Force.
Yes, absolutely.
So even DeMatteis was like, fuck this. I'm not writing another fight with these bozos. What's going on here? They show up, and they've been haunting the Defenders for issues upon issues. And it's just like, oh, enough. And I know exactly how you feel, J.M. DeMatteis. Oh.
Oh. So we then get, the denouement to that battle. The Fury's Soviet counterpart. By the way, I want to point out something here. I thought this was a very realistic, nice touch that Fury's Soviet counterpart was working hand in hand with him. So often in fiction, we see that, our spy agency doesn't work with the foreign spy agency. In reality, that's not true.
Right.
In reality, as we found out during 9/11, it's our own bureaus and different agencies that don't work with each other. There are many times throughout history where, unbeknownst to our citizens or our government, our intelligence agencies have worked with foreign intelligence agencies for a greater cause, a greater good. And I thought that was a really nice touch here by DeMatteis. But anyway, yeah, they're telling Saraf it's time to go back to Russia. And Cloud is having none of that. She confronts Saraf. She says, "You were there the day the Empire kidnapped me. You helped them kill my parents. Do you think I'm just going to let you go home to Mother Russia and forget about it?" And, Saraf apologizes. And Cloud's, "Fuck this. I'm going to electrocute you." She turns into Cloud form. And then Moondragon talks her out of it, counsels her, mentors her.
Yeah, that's the most interesting moment, I think, is that Moondragon is gentle and kind and nurturing with her, which causes the other defenders to have, in thought balloons, various things. Gargoyle thinks, if I wasn't seeing it, I wouldn't believe it. Angel thinks, that's the cold-hearted villain everyone's warned me about. And Iceman has exactly the same word balloon as Angel. So we'll see where that goes. Beast thinks this could be a trick, but what if it isn't? Maybe there's a chance for her yet. But Valkyrie thinks, I should be touched by this display of humanity. After all, Odin placed Moondragon in my care so I could help her get in touch with her humanity. Why then am I filled with fear? Why then does my soul feel so cold? It's a very good question, Valkyrie. I hope we'll get the answer.
So they then return to Angel's home in the Rocky Mountains of New Mexico, and they find it trashed. Warren is surprised to see Candy lying amid the ruins. You remember Candy, don't you, Warren? She's your actual girlfriend, not Moondragon. And Isaac goes rushing off into the house, very, of course, worried about Dolly. And a second later, comes flying back out of the house and smashes into the beast. And we then see Dolly come out in the clutches of who, Chris?
Of Professor Power, Brian.
That's right.
You know, Professor Power, the one who ran away and let all his guys get their asses kicked.
That's right. He came back to capture an old woman.
Yes, exactly. Came back to capture an old woman. So he attacks the defenders. He's fighting them. And again, I felt like the story was kind of over already, but we're back to it and we have the fight. And it's okay because I think that we're sort of cleaning up this story now.
Right.
But what happens next is actually really interesting. Moondragon basically reveals that all along, if she wants to endure the pain, she can do whatever she wants. Odin's band that's on her head is causing her pain, but it isn't actually preventing her from using her powers if she's willing to endure that pain. And she basically says, yeah, I'll deal with it. And her plan is both genius and horrifying, Brian.
It's a Brian Keene plan.
It's a Brian Keene plan.
Keep in mind that Professor Power, his consciousness is inside the body of his son.
His son, who Professor Xavier drove mad.
That's right. Basically, I'll just read the panel here. From the pits of oblivion, a young man's consciousness rises, called up toward the light from the summit of rage. An old man's consciousness descends, forced toward the darkness in the infinite corridors of mind. Son and father collide, interpenetrate, merge, locking together in a dance of agony. of horror, of total madness from which there can be no escape.
So basically, Professor Power is laying there on the deck of the Aerie, and the defenders are pretty horrified. The Beast says, I hope you can live with what you've just done, Moondragon, because I can't. Then later we cut to, Candy sitting down and making an architectural design of what's going to happen with the Aerie. They're leaving the living quarters just as they are and building into the mountainside the rest of the Defenders' new headquarters. And Warren is talking about how much he loves Candy. And she's the most intelligent, beautiful, talented, brave woman he's ever known. But then his thought balloon says, why can't I get Moondragon out of my mind?
That's right. And the way that panel is drawn, Chris, suggests you might be right. Because as he's thinking that, he's silhouetted. And Moondragon is in the forefront of the panel. And she has a very sinister look on her face.
We could even say she was lurking.
Yes.
Then we cut to Cloud and Bobby out by the pool. And prior to this, I don't think there was a pool. But there is now a pool. No, that's on a different level. I see now. It's a different level.
Okay.
I didn't realize that that level was there. But in any case, Cloud is talking about how nobody's holding a grudge against Moondragon. She did what she did to save lives, but Bobby's not listening. He's staring through the sliding glass door at Moondragon.
That's right.
Then the Beast comes in. Go ahead.
Yeah, the Beast comes in, does a cannonball into the pool. Why is he happy? Well, he reveals that, A, he's booked his first college lecture for a cool 5,000 smackaroos. Speaking as someone who does a lot of college lectures every year, I want to live in the Marvel Universe where you get 5,000 for one of those kids.
Yeah, that sounds good.
But more importantly, Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. have reached out to let him know that the new Defenders have been granted official government clearance, which means they can operate as a superhero group legally.
Yeah. And that's the end, basically, of that. And what I find really interesting is that we end with a shot of all of them. 3 cheers for the new Defenders. Their voices joined together in joy. All, that is, except one. And we see that Moondragon is grumpy, but the others are very happy. And the interesting thing to me about it is there's no question that that's the wrap-up for J.M. DeMatteis. The next issue is plotted by DeMatteis, but scripted by Peter Gillis, who takes over the title thereafter. And it certainly seems like even though DeMatteis plotted the next issue, that he knew this was the end of his run, because it feels like the end of his run.
It does. It does. So, what a run it was. I mean, you go back and listen to our previous episodes, folks, and refresh yourselves on what a run it was. And yes, he has expressed his desire to appear on the show and let us fanboy on him. I mean, interview him. So hopefully we will have that for next week or the week after, one of those. I'm not sure which. We'll have to touch base with him. And then we head into Peter B. Gillis. And as I said, I have not reread these as an adult. I only read them as a teenager. So it'll be very cool to go back and read them again with new eyes.
Yeah, no, I'm really curious to relive this because, like you, I mean, I haven't read them since the 80s. So I'm very curious to see how it all turns out. And I'm really curious to talk to J.M. DeMatteis and see how far he will indulge us with our stupid questions. We should just call that episode "Stupid Questions for J.M. DeMatteis."
We should. That should be another podcast for our network. I don't know that it needs to be hosted by us, but there should be a show called Stupid Questions.
I like that. Stupid Questions.
Yeah. Speaking of our network, if you enjoy Defenders Dialogue, it is made possible by the Project Entertainment Network. If you go to their website, you can get Defenders Dialogue merchandise. You can get coffee mugs, pillows, mouse pads, iPhone covers, bumper stickers, you name it, they have it. And the best thing of all, true believers, they are not emblazoned with me and Chris's faces. They're emblazoned with the show logo. So yeah, go to projectentertainment.com and snag some of that sweet swag.
Now, I'm going to interrupt you for a second and ask you, does Mary Sangiovanni's show Cosmic Shenanigans have its own brand of tea? Because if not, there should be.
You know what? I can't believe I'm saying this, but that's a really ingenious idea.
I'm just saying. That's my one for the month. I'm allowed one a month.
That's a great idea. I know that our engineer, Tommy Clark, as you're putting this together, maybe take this as a soundbite and send it to Armand Rosamilia, owner of the Project Entertainment Network.
There you go,
because,
exactly.
Yeah, this needs to happen. So, and speaking of Tommy, just a plug for his show, the Necrocasticon, also available on the Project Entertainment Network. It is a show where heavy metal and horror fiction converge every week. It's a really neat listen. So, Chris, until next week, you have anything to send folks home with?
Excelsior, true believers.
See you next week, folks. Bye.
You're listening to American Top 40. More tragedy in the news today. Kim Kardashian has a new baby. What the hell? There's nothing good to listen to. Hey, wait, what's this?
You gotta roll that out.
See, it makes me do weird things. I don't like it.
God damn it.
I'd be going down on myself.
Shit.
Hey guys, it's Bill,
Mick,
Maya.
and Junior.
from the Unsupervised Podcast.
Check us out every Thursday on the Project Entertainment Network.
Take a break from the stress of the world and come have a laugh with or at us.
Bill.
My Favorite Story, a podcast author anthology featuring short fiction from the hosts of the Project Entertainment Network shows. Three guys with beards: Jim Moore, Jonathan Maybar, and Chris Golden.
Tom Clark from Necrocast Igborn.
Brian Keene of The Horror Show. Chuck Buda. And Armand Rosamilia of the Mando Method. Mary Sangiovanni of Cosmic Shenanigans. Jay Wilburn from Matters of Faith. John Urbancic of Ink Stains.
Biz Zung's Mr. Frank.
Available on Kindle and in paperback and through the Project Entertainment Network store.
www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
This has been an exclusive presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.